Welcome back to the newest episode of Counsel and Commentary. Today I have a fantastic guest, Jim Kenny, from who does actually a unique niche that we haven't had yet, insurance recovery. So welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Thanks for having me. And he's also from Chicago, my hometown. So this is cool.
We didn't talk
First guest.
restaurants before now, so we can talk restaurants if you want.
Yeah, exactly. That's always the big thing when you travel and people are like, wow, I love Chicago restaurants. So it's so funny. Well, let's start with the basics. What exactly does first party property loss mean for policyholder, and why is it one of the most understood areas of law?
So first party property loss is where it usually involves a building where there's been some catastrophic event, hurricane, water damage, fire, flood, something like that. I specialize and focus on uh, the fire loss situation. It's a unique area of practice, but a lot of the reason that I think attorneys aren't particularly focused on is because there's a lot of, you got to deal with the insurance policy. The insurance policy is a large contract. The language that they have in there is different than third party losses where, someone sues someone else and then the insured's getting a defense. So I focus and represent strictly the policyholders. And when they have a loss, the attorney has to be able to navigate not only with the insurance company, but there's also the construction aspect of it. So you have to have an appreciation of how to construct things and know what the damage is and figure out, should a public adjuster be involved or not, things like that.
Yeah, it's a unique niche, and I'm also most people know I'm in real estate, so this is gonna be a fascinating interview for me too. So I learned some things. Luckily, fortunately, I've never had any insurance like hurricane or fires or anything of that nature, but this would be very informative. So when someone experiences serious property damage like fire, flood, storm, what's the first mistake you typically see they make before contacting an attorney like you?
Wow, I think the biggest problem they make is they don't get representation either by a public adjuster or by an attorney and deal direct with the insurance representative, because the insurance representative is the representative of the insurance company. And so what I've seen is there's a misperception that the representative is their representative because it's their insurance company. When it turns out, and you look at their allegiance, it's with the insurance company.
Yeah, 100%. I could attest to that. I had a car accident back in the day, and then the day of the car accident happened, they were at the hospital because I went to the hospital, and they're like, and then they went to after I got out because they wanted to make sure I was okay because that semi hit me. Then they're like looking at the car. I'm like, get away from my car. They're taking photos of it, and they're like, oh, yeah, well, how much do you want? Like they're trying to give me like a really low amount to your point. Because I'm like, and I had friends that gave me good advice, like, do not talk to them. They're only, like you just said, it's to get the lowest payout possible, not your fair compensation. So you're basically way more than free. You're getting them a lot more money. And the goal, even though it's your insurance company, is not to represent you, it's to keep the cost low.
Oh yeah, for sure. And many times they, especially when it's involving a piece of real estate, if it's a large loss, fire damage, something like that, they come out, and I've seen situations where the adjuster for the insurance company was only offering $50,000 and it was a 300,000 plus property damage situation.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I
Yeah.
mean, like
You got to be very careful.
yeah, they're not there on your behalf. So, what are the key differences between first party and third party insurance claims, and why does that distinction matter so much for property owners?
Sure. So if someone gets a commercial liability policy, so a commercial general liability policy known as a CGL policy, that will be a policy that'll have third party and will have first party property losses. So the third party claim is a situation where someone is injured maybe on your property and they sue you, and that's a third party who's suing you, and you go to your insurance company and you're looking for protection and defense in defense against that third party's claim. The first party property loss situation is where there's damage to your property that you own, or even health insurance would be considered a first party type of policy, but it involves health. So with a first party property loss, that's where property you have might have been vandalized, stolen, or damaged if it's a piece of, real estate or an automobile.
Yep, yep. It's this is a fascinating conversation for me because this is the first one in real estate and insurance angle, so it's cool. How often do you see valid claims delayed, underpaid, or denied outright, and what's usually the story behind it?
Wow, that's a big question. So as a person who doesn't usually see the claim when it first originates, I see it usually when there's a problem. So someone has run into a situation with their insurance company where, like I gave that example earlier, the insurance representative undervalued the actual repair cost to repair the property. Or what'll happen sometimes is if it's a residential real estate situation and the homeowner wasn't living there, or they're having construction work done on the property and maybe they're out for a short period of time, the policy typically will have a 30-day window in which they can't leave it vacant. So if the property is vacant where they're not living in it for more than 30 days, they could run into a situation if there was property damage where the insurance company would take a position where they're not going to cover the claim. And so that's a pretty frequent one. And when it comes to fire losses, there's this thing in Illinois called the Illinois Standard Fire Loss Policy, which amends the insurance policy for fire claims and provides broader coverage than sometimes what you would see in a residential or even in a commercial property loss policy. So that's why many insurance public adjusters. So the public adjusters represent the homeowners or the property owner. They'll refer those type of fire loss cases to me because I've had a lot of experience prosecuting on behalf of policyholders against insurance companies, and they've been successful in the appellate courts in asserting the broad coverage that you can find under the Illinois Standard Fire Policy.
Oh, this is a perfect segue then. Insurance policies are full of dense language. What clauses or exclusions do you see most policy overlook until it's too late?
Wow. I think that one of the biggest ones is residing at the property. I've had a situation where some real estate investors, so Jonathan, this might be something you'd be interested in. They had a piece of property that they bought in the city of Chicago. They were rehabbing it and they were planning on flipping it. Their insurance broker knew what they were doing. They knew they weren't living in the property, but yet the insurance broker purchased a policy or bound a policy for them that wasn't a rehab policy. And how did that happen? The first policy they had was a rehab property policy, but then after a year when they were renewing, he understood that they were listing the property and that it was complete. So he switched it from a rehab policy that had less coverage and was more expensive to a policy that was less expensive and had more coverage, not realizing that the owners weren't living there. And so then what happened was the insurance company denied the claim.
Okay, this will be a good segue then. From the client side, what exactly warning signs an insurance company might set up denying or minimizing a claim?
Wow. I think right away you've got to be suspect. They typically do what they're supposed to do. So they dot their I's and cross their T's when it comes to going to the property, taking pictures, meeting with the insured, and trying to coordinate. But one of the things I've seen is when the representative from the insurance company starts recommending their own contractors and suggesting they use one contractor, even though it might not be the choice of the homeowner or the insured. And that's usually a red flag. That I see that a lot in these cases that I've handled or I've reviewed where the policyholder ended up in a situation where the contractor either didn't know what they were doing, undervalued what it would cost to get it completed, things like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that totally makes sense because they're trying to keep the costs as low as possible, basically. So, how can a homeowner or business owner strengthen their claim from day one, even before a lawyer gets involved?
Well, the first thing is really the first thing they should do is look at their policy and make sure they've got the limits of liability that they expect to have. I've had situations where insureds had, minimal $100,000 policy on a property that was to repair or even replace would have been 500 plus. So those are not good situations. I think communicating with your broker and letting them know what coverages you want. So the limits are very, very important. Is the insurance company that's being used well rated, AAA rated, or are they not? And then when you have, so knowing your policy is probably the first step. Then the next step is if you have a loss, report it right away and document things as best you can. Keep notes. I think one of the things, especially if you have a large property loss, is trying to weed through and find a public adjuster that is reputable and is going to have your best interest at heart, because there's very good ones out there, and then there can be bad ones. So like anything, you have to use your best judgment and, do a little research and try to figure it out. Because my understanding is when there is a fire loss, there's a lot of public adjusters that come out and they're swarming the scene, and the insureds are trying to figure out what they need to do. And then they've got the insurance company also out there, and they're trying to document the loss, and they want to know, are you going to hire a public adjuster? Because then they would deal directly with the public adjuster. But so I think hiring a public adjuster, it might not seem like it's necessary because you're thinking, well, it is what it is. How complicated can this be? Especially on the large losses, it can be very complicated. And having a good advocate who's going to go in and they're going to assess the damage. They do this, several times a day. They take photographs. They have this software called Xactimate, and it's a system that the insurance companies use. And what it does is it prices labor and materials, and it allows the public adjuster and the insurance company to compare apples to apples and not apples to oranges. So I see people make this mistake. They've got their friend who's a legitimate contractor. They build houses all the time. They're just going to go right to that person, and they're submitting estimates, but their estimates are maybe 1 page or 2 pages. The insurance company's estimates are 50 to 100 pages deep with tons of photographs, and they negotiate with public adjusters back and forth. In my experience and what I've seen, are not all contractors are capable of doing that. So you might have a great contractor, but they're not going to be able to negotiate the best repair costs for you to get the job done complete. So that's important. Yeah.
No, there's a lot of golden nuggets there. People might have to listen to that twice because you mentioned, I know from the real estate side and the insurance side. So I always pay for the best and the experts because you're dealing with something of such a magnitude, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in terms of real estate. Why cut corners when you're talking, your payouts could be hundreds of thousands of dollars less, especially not hiring someone like you or having an adjuster. And also, the insurance company always wants to send, they have a referral partners or contractors. They're not going to be the best quality. They're just doing as much work as possible for the cheapest. And so paying for the experts, having the right team, hiring someone like you will go a long way to solve a lot of your headaches and do it right from the start and document everything. So I think there's a lot of key takeaways there.
I appreciate that summary. Thank you very much.
I mean, there's a lot of golden nuggets that people have been in real estate or own a home. You gotta listen to that again. What document or evidence makes the biggest difference in maximizing a property loss recovery?
If there was a single document, I think it's um, the repair estimate that's prepared by a public adjuster,
Mhm.
because that, in my cases, if I go to trial, I'm going to use that all the way through the case for depositions and everything. The other thing that's very important, and I find for trials, especially for jury trials, is to have really good photographs. So you have the photographs of at the scene, at the time right after the fire or the property loss. Then as the construction's going on, you have the different stages of construction, and a good public adjuster will go out there and take those photographs, or your contractor will. And then when it's complete, that's the other part where I see a lot of the people going wrong is the policies will have maybe uh, some policies have 180 days to complete the repairs. Some have 1 year, some have 2 years. And you have to be cognizant of that and make sure your contractor is getting in and doing the work as it goes along. Because I've been usually when I get involved, so what happens is the insurance company, right out of the box, will assess the loss. They'll negotiate a settlement with you or your public adjuster, and they'll come up with a replacement cost, an estimated replacement cost value. So that's to complete the work, but they depreciate it. And what they'll pay you at that point is called the actual cash value. And the actual cash value is takes into consideration depreciation, wear and tear, things like that, which they just pretty much estimate. They uh, take out the depreciation and theoretically put it to the side. They pay you the actual cash value so you can do the repairs. And then once you complete the repairs, they'll come in and they'll reassess it. Sometimes they don't come in, they'll just rely on photographs or things like that, and they'll pay you the depreciation holdback. But if you're delayed or late, sometimes they're not going to do that. So that's a whole nother area of cases that I'm involved with in trying to recover the depreciation holdback because of delays and things like that, or the insurance company has some idea that this large loss, the insured has to provide every receipt from, for every nail and window and everything like that, when they've hired a legitimate contractor who's completed the work and done everything that needed to be done and approved by the village or the city. So it's real important.
Yeah, that makes you definitely have to hire a lawyer. This is something like you, for example, because this is too much on the line to like try to do it yourself. Once a claim, so segueing to this next question, once a claim is denied or lowballed, what leverage points does a firm like you have to reverse that outcome?
Can you repeat that? I didn't quite understand.
So once a claim is denied or lowballed, what leverage points does a firm like yours have to reverse that outcome?
Oh, basically, relying on the policy language and, utilizing the adjuster's report or the contractor's report. So if someone insists on not hiring a public adjuster and they're using their contractor, we'll use that to leverage and get that get a fair price. So at least at the initial stage, we'll get that actual cash value that will allow the insured to complete the repairs or get them going. And then what happens too is if it's a large loss, you continue to supplement and add to, you can supplement and add to that expense. And so, for example, you don't know if there's going to be code upgrades many times until the walls are open. So once they open up the walls, the village or city comes in and they look at it, they realize that the electrical or the plumbing's not up to code, then you've got another estimate. So that's another part of the insurance policy that someone would, if you're looking at your policy and you're thinking, hey, I, I don't have any code coverage, well, that would be significant. You want to have code coverage, especially in
Yeah.
Chicago.
I was just gonna say that because I know Chicago real estate. I was like, Chicago's are very adamant about codes, and yeah, that's the big issue there. What's the biggest misconception about fighting an insurance company? Do policy overestimate or underestimate their power?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, the person who has the money usually has the power, and the insurance companies are, there's an old saying, uh, deny, delay, don't pay. And so, right out of the box, you know, going after your insurance company, thinking that you're just gonna get everything under the sun and be an opportunist for a situation isn't a good way to go, because you can ultimately end up losing everything. So what happens many times, if there's if there's property damage, there's not only the building, the structure, but there's also the contents. Some insureds run into problems because they go out and they replace their contents and they get it on sale, but they submit the estimate, or they submit the cost that they paid, not the sale price, but the retail price. And based on that, the insurance company can deny the claim, and that can be catastrophic.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, you don't want to lose, especially as real estate is usually a person's biggest investment. Can you walk us through a successful story where your team helped a client recover significantly more than what was initially offered?
Oh, wow. We do that a lot. Um,
Perfect.
well, we had one case it was a depreciation holdback case, where uh, the damage was significant, but it was depreciation. There's about, I don't know, $65,000-$70,000 that was due. It seemed real obvious to me, but the insurance company dug in and they fought us all the way to the appellate court. And we got the decision by the trial judge. That's a whole nother story about how he ruled, and it was on the eve of trial, and we were just simply going through motions in limine at the time that uh, the other side renewed their motion for summary judgment. It was previously denied, and then for whatever reason, the judge decided to grant it. We went up on appeal. We won on appeal. We got a great opinion. It's one of the premier cases that I use in my cases now in asserting the Illinois standard fire loss policy that broadens coverage for insureds. And so that was huge. And in the insured, we got the whole depreciation plus attorney's fees. It was a really good result for him. And it was a great result for the citizens of Chicago and Illinois. So it's a case that everyone can use and cite to and relies on in these type of cases.
Do most cases get resolved through negotiation? You find taking these going to court more often nowadays?
Um, what I found is, if we can settle it, we know right away. So
Mhm.
they hire me, I think within 30 or 60 days, we have a pretty good idea of whether or not we're going to be able to settle. And then we end up, if we have to, we'll file a lawsuit.
Makes sense. Let's go towards advice here. So if you give one piece of advice to every property owner before disaster strikes, what would it be? I already think I know this, but
Well, make sure you got an insurance policy. It's number one. And then number two is understand what your obligations are under the policy. And so if with it, right, if you're supposed to be residing in the property, reside in the property. If you can't reside in the property, make sure you get a policy that can afford you that type of coverage, because there's not just one policy out there. There's many types of policies. Get a good broker. Make sure you're getting the policy that's right for you, that fits you,
yeah.
and making sure that happens. You need to communicate with your broker about your situation. So sometimes brokers will just assume different things, that you reside there, or it's not a second home, whatever it is. You need to make sure you convey that at the front end. Don't think that, hey, they issued the policy and that's on them. It's not. It's on you. And the law in Illinois requires, or it's assumed that the insured read the policy and understood the policy. So if there's something in the policy that isn't good for you, you can't, put your head in the sand and pretend you didn't know that wasn't there, or you might not have even known it was there. It's presumed that you understood it, and that's the policy you wanted. So it's real important to be able to communicate with your broker or agent and make sure the coverage you get is the coverage you need.
Yeah, I think that was the same sentiment I've had other lawyers on talking about making sure that your policy and always get the better one because it's in the long run, it's going to save you a lot of headaches. Even if it costs a little more, all that's going to solve a lot of issues in the end of the day.
Oh yeah, and actually, this is a good piece of advice that I learned early on in my career, and that is for auto insurance.
Yep.
Someone thinks they've got auto insurance, and everybody else driving on the road has auto insurance, but there's statutory minimum limits. And if you're in an accident and the other side has the statutory minimum limits and it's $25,000 and you're seriously injured, you're not going to get any coverage. So what I do and what I suggest to all my clients and pretty much anyone is try to get the largest uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage you can afford on your policy, because if there is an accident, you want to make sure you're going to get some coverage.
Yeah, yeah, that's great advice there. For business owners, what type of coverage are most critical but commonly missed in commercial property policies?
I, I think it's, making sure, like if you have automobiles and things, your commercial general liability policy I have clients that have many vehicles and they need to have those things identified in the insurance policy for the auto coverage. They got auto coverage, but they don't identify the automobile and the insurance policy. And that could turn into a problem or at least a legal problem. And that costs money and wastes time. So that's important. And then also making sure that, some people will purchase a commercial property and no one's living there as commercial property, but it's not inhabitable. And they might have a security company out there making sure everything's fine, but there's a flood going on in the basement and it's there for months and the damage is catastrophic. It's all over, there's mold and everything. So it's really important to make sure that you have the policy, number one, and then number two, that if it's a vacant building, that you have someone going out there at least on a monthly basis or maybe every other week, just making sure there's no vandalism, nothing else that's going on there that could indicate that the building's not properly maintained, because that's where a lot of those uh, you know defenses for the insurance company come up. The other thing is these policies will require a certain type of sprinkler systems and things like that. And you need to make sure if the policy recovers or requires special fire systems, that you have those things in place.
Yeah, speaking of the sprinkler system, one of our developments in Texas, we're doing a flex space. Warehouse basically is 90% warehouse, 10% office. The national code is 12,000 square feet, then you have to have sprinkler systems. So we built under 12,000, do multiple units just for that. It's because of the tap into the drill is like 2 to 300,000 depending on municipality just to drill into it. And then you have this big insurance policy on top of it. So it's a creative way to save money.
Wow. Yeah.
So, but to your point, exactly to your point, and this is actually a fascinating question because this, especially like I know in certain states like Florida where they have a lot of natural disasters. So this is a pretty fascinating question. How do you see insurance recovery landscape changing with climate risk, inflation, and larger claim volumes?
Oh, wow. Well, there's no doubt that the environment impacts the losses and what's paid out. In the Midwest here, we have a lot of these hail damage claims.
Hmm.
I see them. It's an area that I'm looking at and trying to figure out whether or not it's worth getting into. I'm getting more and more of those type of inquiries in handling those types of claims. But yeah, they're large, and if you live on the coast, one of the coasts, that's a major expense for the property owner.
Yeah, yeah, and to your point with Illinois, because I have friends, grew up there as I mentioned in the suburbs, like Naperville area and stuff like that. I know there's been some hailstorms in the last few years, and like there was a lot of like roof damage, window damage, and then you're fighting with the insurance company for the payout. It's
Well,
yeah.
and they'll have these microbursts too. I've had situations where someone's house had there was a microburst, uh, you know, shifted the whole building.
Wow.
And actually, that situation, I think the initial estimate from the insurance company was $25,000, but ultimately they ended up paying close to $275,000 because the damage affected the structure of the building, and the roof was out of line and all kinds of stuff. So it's real important that you don't sign off right away thinking that everything's is good. Just because the facade looks good doesn't mean behind the walls that it's good as well. So
Yeah, and 25,000 won't get you much in a commercial development. That's not much. Um, you've handled cases across Illinois. Are there any trends you're seeing in how issuers handle claims differently now compared to like 5 or 10 years ago?
not really, other than right now, you know, uh, they seem to be focused on this depreciation holdback and getting the work done, completed within 1 year or 2 years or even 180 days. You got to make sure that that's properly documented if you get an extension, because if it's not properly documented, you think there's going to be coverage. The contractor completes the work, and then the carrier doesn't pay the depreciation, and you're in a situation where now you've got the contractor leaning your property, and you're thinking, I had this insurance coverage, we had worked out a negotiation, and now they're not paying. So
Yeah,
that we see that situation really coming up a lot in the last couple of years.
yeah, that makes sense. What drives you personally to go up against big insurance companies or policy holders who feel powerless?
Oh, well, no one likes a bully, right? So you know, I just have uh, you know, I've always been interested in helping the little guy and making sure they're not getting pushed around.
I love it.
And I think that's the big motivator for me.
Love it. If somebody listened today just had a claim denied, what's the smartest next step they could take right now?
Oh, call me, call an attorney. You need representation right away, especially if they're denying the claim. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. And then I was talking with Sal from Top Attorneys in North America. We both know who sponsors the show.
Yeah.
What is one thing that inspired you to get into become a lawyer?
Wow. One thing, you know, I think that the law is what we're a country of laws. We're you know, that's makes everything run. It allows people to resolve disputes, expand their businesses, have a nice civilized society. It's you know, foundational for a good system and society. So in working for and doing what I do, representing policyholders and not insurance companies, is making sure that the playing field is it's a level playing field, and that the policyholders properly being represented in these against these large insurance companies and their legal departments.
Love it. Yeah, it's a great answer. As we wrap this up, where does the people can find out more about you, your website or contact info?
Sure. KennyLawFirm.com is the website. Our phone number is 312-641-0700. Currently, our office is in Glen Ellyn. We recently moved from the Loop on LaSalle Street, and we relocated closer to my house. Most of my cases are in Cook County, Chicago, and the Northern District of Illinois. But now that I'm out in the suburbs, we're also handling cases in DuPage County, Will County, and McHenry County currently.
Nice. Yeah, so Naperville area too,
Oh
basically.
yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
big market.
Aurora, yeah,
Yeah, great.
Joliet.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you so much for your insight. That was fascinating, especially as somebody who's into real estate. So I like to get the insider's perspective. And thanks again for being on Counsel and Commentary, James.
I
Or Jim.
appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity. It's nice meeting you, Jonathan.
Thank you for listening to Counsel and Commentary. This episode has been brought to you by the top attorneys of North America.